Hello and thanks for watching this Cloud9 ERP Solutions video and subscribing to our YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to show you how project billing works in Acumatica. We're going to go through a simplified process and we're going to break it up into two different categories: progress billing and time and material. So let's get started. So you can see in this particular project, this is an electrical project. And if we scroll down under our Summary tab, you can see a few different settings. The first one is our billing period is on demand. That's great, particularly for this demo, because I can run this billing right here, this button here, at any point in time I want. I don't need to wait for a cycle. So the billing periods allow you to do, for example, monthly cycles where you can make sure that you're only running on a schedule. But in this case, again, it works best to demo under on demand. And you may want to do that also. Anytime you want to send out an invoice for particular big lump sum items, on demand works great. If we scroll down, you can also see that I have create pro forma invoice on billing. This is like a draft invoice. It allows you to send out an invoice to the customer, and they can basically communicate with you as to what they agree on as far as invoicing. This is very common in construction, where certain items which are progress billed, there may not be a general consensus for both parties as to whether or not those items can be billed. Now, additionally, you see this billing rule here. Now, the billing rule is used under the Summary tab here. It's used to, every time I add a task, it'll automatically pull in this particular billing rule. So that sets the defaults for any tasks you may add for this project. Now you can see I have a bunch of different tasks here. Tasks are subcategories of how we bill this particular project. You have tasks because associated to tasks, you'll have budgets for your revenue and for your costs. And it also allows a good description into the invoice so that the customer knows what they're being billed for, what element of the project they're being billed for. So for this example, to get the billing started, we have, under our revenue budget, we have a rough-in and a trim, additionally to all these other items here. So if we go to our revenue budget, we have something for general conditions, but we don't have anything for example, rough-in and trim. So let's add our revenue budget here. We'll use a cost code of zeros, and we'll just use default. We could put a budget in here. It's not necessary for a time and material. Additionally, we'll add another revenue budget line item for our trim, which note that it's under a different billing rule. We're going to get into billing rules in a second. So we'll add 03, and we'll give ourselves a rate here, $65 an hour for trim work. Now, if we go back, these billing rules are defined into two main categories. Progress billing, where we update the percentage of completed work, and that will show up on the next invoice. So, for example, a $10,000 task line item, we complete 30% of it, that'll show up as $3,000 on our pro forma invoice, our ultimate invoice. Whereas time and material, it waits for transactions to be created, and then it uses a formula to show those on your next invoice. So the first one we'll go into is progress billing. We'll show the setup here. This is not for you to become an expert in creating billing rules, but simply to understand the categories and what to look for. So this is a progress billing rule. You can see the billing type here. It's progress billing. There's your time and material. And we have formulas for how the description will show up for the invoice, for the line description. Where are we going to pull the branch from? You have multiple branches in Acumatica. We're going to pull it from the project. And if we did decide to use the billing rule, it would look at this right here, this destination branch. Where do we pull the revenue account from? could pull it from the account group, or we have other options there as well. So that's our progress billing rule. Now, if we go over to our time and material rule, you can see the billing type is time and material. But the big thing here is, how does it know to use this billing rule? And that's based on the account group travel and expenses. So anytime we create a project transaction that hits the array of expense accounts that are in this account group, travel and expenses, it will automatically use that and create a transaction in your invoice. And these are all the formulas that it uses to do that. So in this case, it's marking it up 10%. Whatever the amount is of the transaction, it's essentially putting 10% on it. And you have all these different steps. The system goes through travel first, then it goes into labor. You could see that here. Then subcontractors, then materials, and so on. So the system will look at this billing rule, and it'll go through its various steps to see if anything checks out, and then it will use the formulas accordingly. So for example, materials we're marking up 15%, whereas travel, as you saw, is only 10%. So let's start with a simple invoice where we'll update the progress billing. We'll go over to our revenue budget. We'll go over to our task 2, which was rough in. I'll change the description so it's not confusing. And we'll mark this 50% complete. Notice what happened up here. If you saw it quickly, the pending invoice amount changed. Now the pending invoice amount already is $21,000 because someone went into this project and updated a percent complete, and therefore it updated this pending invoice amount. So we have some additional items that the project manager had updated and already said this particular item is completed, or 20% of it is completed. So make sure that when we run our billing, it picks it up. And that's the beauty of Acumatica. The people in the field can update tasks and their percentage complete. The project manager can review it, and the person creating the invoices can finalize it while you're all in the same system. So now we'll run our billing. And you can see here, all of our line items are showing up with their revised budgets. And if we scroll over to the right, you can see what's previously been invoiced and what's being invoiced today. This is very helpful, particularly in construction, but for customers to know where are they at with certain line items, certain budgetary line items. They can maintain their budgets and know how much more left over they're going to have in the invoicing of this project. So, but you could see the 21.6 here and the 212 that we just updated. So now you can remove the hold, get it approved, and release it. Now, of course, approvals are optional, and you can create elaborate maps to determine when you need an approval or which people should approve which items. So that's our pro forma invoice for progress billing. Additionally, if we go back to the project, Acumatica gives you a great tab here that allows you to see all of the invoices that have been created for this particular project. So you can keep track. What did I do last time? You can see the AR invoice as well as the pro forma invoice. You can open it up right from here and do whatever you need to. You can see, for example, this invoice hasn't been released. That's a prerequisite for releasing the next invoice, that the previous invoice needs to be released. Now, if we go back, and let's say, for example, now we want to create a trim activity. Well, again, if we look at our billing rule, you'll notice it's looking at anything with the travel account group. You can see it up here on the top right. Anything with labor account group, subcontractors, materials, and additional account groups here, equipment, other expenses. So I can create a transaction a number of different ways. The first one I can do is to simply go into project transactions, create a new one, add a line, add our task. We can leave the cost code alone. Pick our account group. Give it a quantity, 5 hours at $65 an hour. And release it. Now, the other thing I can do is I can create an accounts payable bill. We'll select our vendor. We'll give it an invoice number. We'll add a line. Let's say it's quantity 1, and it's a lump bill of $500. We'll scroll over to the right, and we'll pick our project. We'll pick a cost code, and we'll pick our task ID. Now, you see the GL account here is 50,000. So if we go back to the project, remember that this billing rule under subcontractors, assuming this is the step we're talking about and the way we want it to bill out, is looking at the account group subcontractor. Now, there's no field in the accounts payable bill to pick the account group. And one thing you notice is a warning here. The system is telling us that this cost code and the project task, that's not a valid combination together in the material account group. So why is it looking at the material account group? This is a bill, I would think subcontractor. We were talking about labor earlier. Well, that's because of our account here. So if we go back to our billing rule and we look at subcontractors, it's picking up the account group subcontractor expense. If we go back and we look up account group, this is where this is defined for your construction project accounting. These account groups monitor certain GL accounts. We talked about it earlier. So if I go into, for example, material, it's analyzing the account group 50,000. So it's looking at the material account group, and when we look at our billing rule, it's going to use this material step in order to add this to an invoice. And it's going to use this formula. It's going to mark it up 15%. So if we're okay with that, no problem. However, our cost code doesn't match up. So we could either do one of two things. In this scenario, how we're demoing it, we could either make it the subcontractor, or we can change it to a materials invoice that we're going to bill for and make sure that there's a zero cost code. So if we go back and we take a look at our cost budget and we scroll down, you can see we have a task 3, but it's for cost code 0 and it's labor. So if we wanted to, we can add a new one, 03. The cost code is all zeros. And we'll add our materials. We could put a budget in there, but we'll save this. And notice what Acumatica does here. It gives us a warning at the top saying the project budget is exceeded. And that's essentially because we have a cost code and a project here that has no budget. But if I save this and I leave this GL account, this will pull up our materials account group, which under our project billing rule will bill under this step a 15% markup. So if we close this, go back to our bill, we remove the hold, and we release it. Now we have 2 transactions, time and material transactions, that are hitting the project. We have one that we created under bills and adjustments, and one that we created under project transactions. So if we go back to the project, and we run our billing, under time and material, we're now getting these two items being billed. The second one is the accounts payable bill that we created. And you can see it here, no problem. And the first line is our labor, the project transaction that we created. And it has the billed quantity here, but not the billed amount. So why is that? Let's take a look. If we go back to the project and we look at our tasks, notice under our task 3, we have our billing rule, but there's no rate table. Now, if we take a look at rate tables, and we open up our standard rate table, and if we switch to our different rate types, in our demo system, we have one called labor task. And here you can see we're using a $200 an hour rate. It started back in 2013 for these different tasks. So what you can do here is you can load up the task that you're looking for. We've added the 03 project task, and the rate, effective as of 2013, is $200 an hour. So we go into our billing rule. We switch down to labor. You'll notice our rate type is empty. We need to link that to our labor task rate type. So we'll save this. We'll go back to our pro forma invoice. We'll delete it. Now we could rerun our project billing. Notice we've added the standard rate table for this particular task. And if we check our time and material, you'll see now our rate is $200 an hour. So that's how to generate invoices from a project. We reviewed how to do it using a progress billing method and a time and material method. In time and material, we created an accounts payable bill. We applied it against the project, which then was added to the customer's invoice. And additionally, we had 5 hours we created in a project transaction. And our rates were a little sticky there, but we troubleshooted through. We looked at our rate tables. We looked at our billing rule to get an understanding of how all of that works and how the rates get over to the customer's invoice. So thanks so much for watching this video and subscribing to our YouTube channel. And of course, if you like the video, please click the like button. And if you have any questions about this or anything else Acumatica, feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again, and have a great day.